What's up, everyone, and welcome down to Zetro's Toxic Vault. What's going on, Walt?
The spider, it's getting to be
I
daylight savings time.
what?
He likes it. The night is coming on
I'm
quicker
telling you, I thought him sounding
after
all
this
excited
weekend.
and shit like that. I wondered about that. I
Yeah?
haven't heard from Mr. Red Rum in a while.
Yeah, it means
Anyway,
he's got a longer night and earlier night.
what's up, everyone? How's everyone doing out there? I hope you guys are great. Me and Walt, well, it looks like some of the better episodes that we've done are when I've talked about the records that I have.
This is a monumental
So we've gone in succession. We've
episode.
talked about pleasures and the making, kind of how that went into that. There'll always be more to add. And then we did Fabulous Disaster. But so
and now it's time.
today we are going to do Impact is Imminent. And I know I've seen a lot of your comments, and a lot of people want to know what went into that record and how that record all came out.
We're going to talk about the whole thing.
Talk about that
dissect
right now.
it.
We're going to Actually, we're going to dissect. We're going to back up a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to go, knowing we're going to go as Fabulous Disaster tour and cycle was ending in '89.
Right, and there's a couple interesting little twists, maybe, since I researched this a bit. This was the fourth studio album, the first one on Capitol Records.
Let me get to that. That's what I'm going to get to right now. Okay, let me explain that.
Let
me explain.
Let it be.
Let me tell you what, we're backing up. Because in
okay.
'89, actually in '88, when we were on tour for actually Pleasures of the Flesh, we kind of knew we were going to go with Capitol Records. We knew Tom Wally was the head of A&R, and David Berman was the president, and Rachel Matthews was our A&R rep there, and we were going to Capitol. Well, we were still in contract with Combat for one more record and another one on our option, and so we still owed it to him. So Capitol was trying to buy us from
And I heard
Combat.
it was $1 million.
It was, and actually,
See, that's true.
And they denied, they turned it down. I mean, obviously, back in those days, it was record
You
sales.
were their
and
biggest
records.
act on that.
Yes, we were.
So it was hard for them to let go.
So when we were already, we were talking to them, so we were already going into, it didn't seem to happen, but we were going into writing and doing Fabulous Disaster. We kind of knew through that whole record cycle that we were probably going to Capitol after we hadn't physically penned the deals, but we had been talking to them for quite some time
in talks,
and it was really exciting for us because back in those days Combat was an independent label and Capitol was a major label, and that seemed like anything that was on a major label at that time got a lot of attention or got a lot of draw, or your video got played on MTV in rotation, and that was the medium back then.
And there weren't a lot of thrash bands on major labels.
Well, there wasn't. There was a very few. I mean
Megaforce.
Obviously, Megaforce Atlantic they were the
Merging.
closest one. They were merging to one, but they weren't a full-on
Right.
a major label. And Metal, I mean, like more like Elektra or Columbia or Capitol or
And it's probably that Megaforce merged with Atlantic because of Metallica and their success, right?
Maybe, yeah, that might have had something to do with it. I know when I was still in Legacy that it was an issue where we didn't sign with. There was many other record labels and record deals on the table for Legacy. We were holding out for Megaforce because Johnny Z kept telling us, I got this huge thing going with Atlantic that goes through. You guys are the first ones I'm going to sign. And we were kind of waiting for that because we knew Megaforce had Metallica, they had Anthrax, they had SOD. It was one of those types of things where we kind of trusted what had went on with that label. So it was kind of a holdout. And then I joined Exodus, but they still kept with their intentions on signing, which they did, which I think was smart for Testament to do. The Megaforce Atlantic did so much for them. But we were kind of talking to them, and so when the Fabulous Disaster tour cycle ended at the end of the summer of '89, we went back in this writing studio to write Impact is Imminent. And at that time, we signed to Capitol in between that time because now we had fulfilled the deal with Combat, which was a 2-record deal, 3-album deal, 2 records, plus a third on our option if we wanted to stay. But obviously, we wanted to go to the bigger label, and that's what we did. And it was, it was like, wow, so overwhelming because everything's done so much on a larger scale.
Did you actually have like a signing that you remember that you had a sign?
Yes, so we did.
That's kind of like a ball player signing a big contract.
We went with Elliot Kahn.
Yeah, the big lawyer.
And we were
Green Day Management.
We were managed by Bill Graham Management at the time, and we went to Bill Graham Management that day. Bill was actually in the room as well, and it took 8 hours to go over. Our contract was about this thick. And we had to go through it and initial.
You can only read it if you're a lawyer.
But we didn't know what the fuck they were saying, man. We were just, Elliot was like, okay, go to page. And this is what it says. So just initial this because they changed this. And we're sitting there, yeah, right on, whatever, yeah, right on. It was a 7-record deal worth $3.5 million over the 7 albums. The advances would equal $3.5 million when we got to the last one. I mean, like the first one was like 300.
Hey, you'll never have to work another day in your life.
That's exactly what I thought. Oh boy. Oh,
the music business.
And that's what you're thinking. So we're writing this record, and Gary and Rick's vision for this album, and they were both actually living together. They were both renting a house in, I believe, was that San Pablo or El Salvador?
Richmond or somewhere.
Richmond area. Remember the house on the hill?
Yeah.
And they lived together with both of their girlfriends at that time.
Right.
And they were writing the record, and they were very much set on writing in their eyes, the heaviest debut record on a major label ever, and that was their eyes. And they, this is what they're writing, the riffs, everything.
A little Faster Than Fabulous is pace,
very much so. Faster Than Fabulous. We didn't know who was going to produce. Actually, it was produced by Rick and Gary, but
the H team.
But we used it, and you learn these things after that.
That was the first time that they.
And that's why it's very guitar heavy sounding on that record.
I got some interesting quotes from that.
We used a guy named Chubba Patak. And Chubba did Garage Days with Metallica. And so we were referred to by Lars and Kirk to try, for the next record, to try Chubba, I guess. And I never met him before we worked with him. So we went up and we actually got away. We rented a house up in Mendocino County. We stayed in a place called Albion. And we recorded a studio called Record 1 or Record 2. It was in
December of 1989.
December of 89. Compchi, California. The guy's name was Philo Hayward that owned the studio. I don't even know if it exists
And
anymore.
I think that isn't that the way that you guys like to do that, to get away from things, get in a house.
Well, that was the mentality.
Andy Sneap.
Yeah, that was the mentality. That was that we get away to record the record. There's no families, there's no kids, there's no distractions. You're just up there working. So that was the mentality.
And playing.
Up there and playing. So, so the record, the record we recorded in January, I believe.
Right, because it was released June 21st, right. 1990.
And at that time I was just, this was 89. Actually, in October of 89, I found out that Christine, who was my ex-wife, she got pregnant with my oldest son, Cody, and I kind of got married in that time. So I was dealing with that a little bit, but I was actually in on this whole process.
I remember going to your wedding.
I was writing lyrics as well. In fact, I wrote quite a bit of lyrics on this record, and that's kind of how it went, and we put it together pretty quickly, and like Walt said, we started recording in December, and I had pretty much everything together. I wasn't writing too much while we were in the studio up there. I think maybe 4 or 5 songs.
You have to wait, though, until things are more complete before you can put the full lyrics and chorus
lyrically,
all together.
We had the structures lyrically, and of course Gary's writing lyrics too, because Gary writes great lyrics as well. So we were kind of all in at the time. The only one that wasn't in at that time was Robbie, and this is our first record now with John Tempesta. Tom Hunting had left the band earlier in '89, and this band decided not to work with him when we went to actually had a meeting with him, but the band came out and decided we weren't going to work with him, that we were going to actually hire the guy who had been touring with us, which was John Tempesta, which was you guys know him. He plays in the Cult now. He was in White Zombie. He was in Rob Zombie. He played in Testament for a while. He was in what's that?
Prong too, right? He was.
No, I don't think Prong. What's that other band?
He was in their
Helmet. He was in
Helmet.
That's right. He was in Helmet, but he was actually working as a tech for Charlie Bernante.
So he grew up with those New York in
he
the
was
Bronx.
Charlie Bernante. He was in the Anthrax
so
guys.
The first time we saw him was on the 1988
tour with
Anthrax.
Right,
Among the
That's
Living.
it. He was He was Charlie's drum roadie. Yeah.
But who noticed that he could really play the drum?
Charlie told us that because I remember having a conversation with Charlie, and Charlie came up to me and goes, after Tom. Tom left during the Headbangers Ball tour, 5 dates into it. We used Perry Strickland from Violence, which people know, because if you watched, Perry and I talked about that. He's like, I remember Charlie coming up to me in his New York accent going, so what are you guys going to do about Tom? And I go, I don't know. He goes, hey, you should try out Tempesta. And we're like, really, Johnny? He's like, yeah. He goes, he's fucking really good. And so one day, I was coming into sound check, and John was very concerned, and John came up and said, hey, hey, Johnny, what's up? He's all, hey, how's Tom doing? I go, he's doing pretty good. He goes, what are you guys going to do? I go, well, we're probably going to have to get another drummer. I go, we don't know how deep that is, and obviously we're cooking right now. He's like, what are you talking about? And I go, you. He's like, what? I go, you. I go, Charlie said that you're real good, so we're talking about trying you out. And he's all, really? So the rest of that tour, we had a meeting with him. It was either that day or later that week, because Phil Devil was like, whatever you do, Zetro, don't steal my drummer. And we were never going to take Perry from Violence. We knew that Perry was going to go back to Violence, although I think Perry wished he would have got the gig, because it was, it was a good gig at that time, especially.
For sure.
But so John sat behind Perry for the next few weeks that we were on tour with Anthrax and Halloween on Headbangers Ball, and he was watching watching before he had to go, obviously work Charlie's kit, watching Perry play, and then we after that we did a headlining tour with Forbidden, and he played on that. He played on that whole tour. So
Cycle.
We kind of had a meeting if we wanted Johnny in the band, and then I kind of went.
Didn't you fly him out? He did. Well, that was to practice for the tour, but he.
Well, no,
we
flew him out. He was living in L.A. He lived in L.A. at this time. By that time, he had moved to L.A. And so he lived with his girlfriend at that time, and so we flew him up. But I mean, it just worked out that Johnny was in the band. So now here we are. We're about ready to record Exodus's fourth record, first on a major label, and first one without Tom. And then all of a sudden, it came out. Robbie came up and he was playing. And then I don't know, something happened that he had to go back and learn his part again, which he did.
He's a little shy.
And then he came back and he finished his tracks. And so, and everything was good. And then, so first one with Johnny, and to me, it was like, wow. And I'm going to be the one who was one of the replacement guys. I'm thinking to myself, wow, seems like every record or every other record, we're replacing a member here, even though, because I replaced Bailoff, and now Johnny's in there. So here's two members removed from Bonded by Blood, which was a monumental record. You got to remember. So, and Tom is a monster drummer with monster technique, and no taking away anything from Tempesta. Tom is Exodus, you know what I mean? And so it's
signature left-handed rolls and his signature sound.
It's just his signature thrash beat, and it's very
also
hard to replace, I guess.
That's true. Also, you have to mention, you could always find a drummer that's going to come in professionally and do it, but you want to know a guy, right? It's
But
about
I mean,
living
Johnny
with the
did
guy.
a great.
That's
Johnny did a great job. Johnny came in and became a member of the band, and we did some other stuff like Japan and Mexico, Cabo Wabo. Remember
it
that?
became like family.
And he was family. He
Yeah,
was, and he became a
definitely.
part of us very much. So I can't say that he was not. He definitely very much was, like Tom was, and like is again. Is. So it was one of those types of things.
What's interesting also is that actually before this record of Impact, you recorded on the road "Good Friendly Violent Fun," and that has Johnny on it. But it was actually predated the album, although it was released in '91 after Impact.
I'm gonna Walt, I'm probably gonna get to that album eventually.
Yeah,
but
well-
I do want to talk about that record.
But I thought that's an interesting twist.
No, it is. It is. So Johnny's coming back. Johnny's in the band, and Tom did a great job. I love Tom as in, things didn't work out. He had some issues that he had to deal with, and
to get through.
and Exodus wasn't for him at that time. And so here we got a new guy coming in, and we're going up to Northern California to record this record. And we got the songs together. It's the first one on Capitol. And then we get up there to record the record, and guess what happens? All of the people that signed us to Capitol were all fired from the label. The president, the head of A&R, and our A&R all replaced. So basically, our record, which we did, we just signed a 7-album deal. We're $3.5 million. And your cheering section, these are the people that signed you. So they're the ones, if you're successful, makes you look like a success, are all gone. So basically nobody had any stake in us there. So,
It's like a coach that gets on a team and he wants to have his own team, but he never picked the team that the prior coach left him.
well, it's kind of like the team got a whole new coaching staff.
Right.
And nobody knew what to do with this team. Because here you are on our A&R, Rachel Matthews, who actually became vice president of Hollywood Records after a while, which was owned by Disney. And then Tom Wally, he went to another major label. They all did really well after that. We actually, got, okay, well, we're just going to give you him. And actually, DJ Will. You know DJ
Yes.
Will? He was our...
Just saw him on the Mega Cruise.
I bet he was on the Mega Cruise. He's a DJ now, but he was our A&R. And a great guy, knew a lot about the business, knew a lot about the sound, didn't know what to do with the band, being a rep for Capitol Records, didn't know what we needed to do. So
Well, you had bands like Poison on Capitol back then, right?
it was them. It was, Megadeth too was on Capitol, but they seemed to have a better grip on Megadeth than they did on Exodus. I mean, there was who else? It was Great White, Michael Schenker. There was many bands on Capitol with us that were kind of metal bands. Rigor Mortis, they were a thrash band out of Texas. So there was a couple of bands, but the thing is that all these new avenues in this heavy record. So we go into recording it in December, like Walt says, and we did it up in Comchi, California, record one or record two, one of those called. And so, we kind of, just kind of went over certain things. The album cover looks like a photo, but it's not. It's an actual painting. And we were brought a portfolio of this guy who does paintings that look like photos, and he did all this cool stuff. So that's what we had. And we actually did have to go to Hollywood, and we did sit in the car just so they could take a picture of us in the car.
And then it was airbrushed or something.
Yeah, that was all painted. Impact Is Imminent album cover, that is not a photo. That is exactly painted from the get-go. There's nothing. They didn't take that and put it on a photo. That you see our faces, the car, everything in there is a painting. So that was, again, the leverage of a major label, having the access to artists that were not like that at the time. I mean, now there's
and right there in Hollywood too, accessible.
But the thing is it's not. Now there's a computer. There wasn't a computer back then. When you did a painting, this is an actual painting. This is not a graphic arts thing. So we did that. That was the setup. It was a big, kind of.
It's a great album cover. I like it.
It's a good album cover. Actually, And I'll get into the tracks now, so we
Yeah.
can talk about.
Well, just to say, it says you recorded at Music Grinder and Record 2.
Yeah, we did record 2. That was it, Music Grinder, and I think
And
we
you did additional recordings at Alpha and Omega.
Alpha, yeah, right.
And The Plant.
And The Plant. I was going to say, yeah, because
And Earwax Studios.
I fixed a couple of things. Earwax was the place where I think we got the overdubs from. So you hear the record opening up, and you hear a car, and it kind of Impact Is Imminent. Obviously, it's going to hit eventually. The song, as I wrote the lyrics to this song, the song is about, it was a big thing at those days, was drinking and driving. It just started to me. I know it's a huge thing now, and over the years, especially the last 30 or 35 years, it's been a big thing. But when I grew up in the 70s, it wasn't all that big of a deal. You kind of got thrown in jail for a night and given a $50 ticket, but it turned into something big, and people were dying over it a lot. It seemed like an epidemic. So
yeah, when we were kids, if you got pulled over for drinking and driving, they gave you a test, and a lot of times they passed you. But even though you were above the legal limit of today's standard,
yeah, there wasn't no biological standard.
Right.
They didn't have a breathalyzer back then, at least that far back. Anyway, so the song is about drinking and driving, and if you drink and drive, eventually you will be Impact Is Imminent. You will crash your car.
It clocks in at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, which is the shortest track on the album.
I love the opening riff. Watching them do it on the guitar is artwork to watch them finger that. It's actually really, really cool. I loved it. Great way to open the record. I'm going to be very honest with all of you. This is not my favorite vocal performance on a record. This whole record, myself personally, I don't know if it was because I had things going on. It's not my favorite. I was going for something that I don't think I necessarily achieved. You know what I mean? Because I was trying to evolve. Big thing was I was under this thing. I was young, and I'm trying to expand my vocals, I guess you could say. And this one was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be heavy, I'm just going to come over the top. And it's like, I know a lot of people like this record. I love it too.
Does that have anything to do with the production? Because, there's all these different things you can do with vocals now.
Maybe,
and fix them up or
a little bit,
up.
but I just think my attack was not as hill and valleys, I guess I'll say, as I would like it to be. I liked it to be. If I could go back now, and you say that about every record. Let me tell you guys, if you're a musician, you'll know this is to be true. You listen to your record, and 2 years down the road, you're going, fuck, I wish I could do that lead over. Oh, if I could do that vocal part again, this is what I would do. And it's just part of it, but to me, music is spontaneity, and if you're writing songs and all of a sudden, you're writing the lyrics to them, and boy, that's what you hear, and that's what grabs you, and that's what's cool. And if you can capture that magic, then that's exactly what it is. Because some lyrics take me all day to write, like the chorus for Fabulous Disaster and Forever After. You can know the laughter, world's being plastered by an evil bastard, exterminating faster, devastating plaster, Fabulous Disaster. That took me all day to put that thing together. Toxic Waltz took me 25 minutes to write the whole damn song. So it's like, depending on...
Well, sometimes it comes quicker.
Some of the legacy songs that I wrote back in the day, Burn Offerings, Raging Waters, Alone in the Dark, quick. Wrote those like in no time at all. Didn't spend really over a crazy amount of time overthinking what I was going to do. Whatever grabbed me to the music, to the riff is how I've done it, and kind of did that on this one. So Impact, to me, I love the way the album opens up. I love that, and then all of a sudden you hear a crash and I love the guitar tone on. And yes, it's very guitar tone heavy, very much so.
I think it's some of the best riffs that
I
Gary
think so
and Rick
too, because
wrote.
Gary and Rick were on fire at that time, and they were really a great partnership at that time. And this now, I had been in the band for 2 records, 4 years. We had been together, we lived together, we'd puked together, we'd partied together, we'd cried together, we'd done it all together now. So now it was really like it seemed like these songs were a good feel.
I also think that if there was one album I could remaster and with today's technology, that this would be it to really highlight some of the things that
I would like to see
that.
Gary and Rick and Andy Steep go back and in this one. It would be a lot of fun to see what happens, what they could do with it. And so,
number 2, AWOL.
AWOL. In the song AWOL, I didn't write lyrically, but Gary wrote. Very, very hard, fast riff. The vocal in it is really quick. It's actually about Ollie North. And remember Oliver North?
The Contra gun scandal.
Yeah, because he was a
Marine.
Yeah, but he was a traitor, and so that's kind of what this song was about, is him being a traitor and denying it. So I love the lyrics. I love the attack.
And who wrote the lyrics on that
Gary
one?
wrote the lyrics, dude. Yeah, Gary is as much of a
little more,
lyricist
and it's what was happening at the time, a political kind of statement in there.
Well, yeah, the wall had just broke down too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we were writing this record, the wall had just broke down 4 months prior to this. I mean, we started when we were writing it, the wall had come down. That's actually, we'll talk about that later.
And this one tracked in at 544.
There's another song on here that had
a medium length song. All right.
But then we did. Then the next song was called "The Lunatic Parade," and that's basically about the fans that would come and follow the band on tour. We had these girls at this time that we met in, I can't remember where they were. We call them the Little Alabama Girls, and they followed us around on tour.